There are stories that historians whisper about in the dim corners of archives, tales so meticulously scrubbed from official records that their very omission screams louder than any declassified document. In the fog-shrouded shipyards of Seattle during the spring of 1942, amid the clamor of rivet guns and the roar of arc welders, something impossible happened. 20 Japanese-American workers vanished in a single night, swallowed by an explosion that left no bodies, no wreckage beyond charred timbers and twisted steel. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was that all 20 had been marked for internment weeks before, their names crossed off employment rolls, their families rounded up under Executive Order 9066, their lives documented as evacuated to camps like Manzanar or Tule Lake. And yet, on that fateful April evening, these relocated souls walked away from the Kaiser shipyards, led by a man who had survived 2 fatal accidents already, a man whose records showed him dead not once, but twice, a man named Kenji Sato, whose presence flickered in and out of wartime ledgers like a shadow in the mist, undecided whether to fade into oblivion or haunt the living.
This is the story of how one man discovered that sometimes, to save your community, you must become the phantom your oppressors fear most, a rumor on the wind, a ghost in the machine, a legend whispered in the dark that no one can disprove, but everyone feels in their bones. What follows may strain belief, but every detail can be verified. The shipyard logs exist, the internment orders are archived, the timelines align, and that's what makes it so profoundly unsettling. Because if this tale is true, it means that for nearly a year, a dead man navigated the treacherous waters of wartime America, orchestrating the most audacious evasion of internment in Pacific Northwest history. And if it's not true, it means 20 people conspired to fake their own demise so convincingly that even the FBI believed it. Either way, something spectral haunted the Puget Sound in 1942. The question is, were they ghosts or just desperate enough to become them? Part 1. The Forges of War. Seattle in the early 1940s was a city on the edge of the world, where the Pacific Ocean met the relentless drive of American industry. The attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941 had transformed the sleepy port into a roaring beast of wartime production. Shipyards sprawled along the waterfront like iron tentacles, churning out Liberty ships, destroyers, and tankers at a pace that defied imagination. The Kaiser shipyards, under the command of industrialist Henry J. Kaiser, were the heart of this frenzy. Here, in vast dry docks that smelled of salt water and molten metal, thousands of workers toiled around the clock. Riveters, welders, crane operators, men and women from every corner of the nation, drawn by the promise of steady pay and patriotic duty. But beneath the hum of machinery lurked darker currents. Anti-Japanese sentiment boiled over after Pearl Harbor, fueled by fear, racism, and government propaganda. Posters screamed, "Remember Pearl Harbor," while newspapers decried Jap spies lurking in every shadow. On February 19, 1942, President Franklin Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, authorizing the forced removal of over 120,000 Japanese Americans from the West Coast. They were labeled enemy aliens, their homes seized, their businesses shuttered, their lives upended. In Seattle's Japantown, Nihonmachi, the streets emptied overnight as families were herded onto trains bound for assembly centers and then remote internment camps. The Kaiser shipyards employed hundreds of Nisei, second-generation Japanese Americans, before the war. Born in the U.S., they were citizens by birthright, skilled laborers who had proven their loyalty through sweat and precision. But loyalty meant nothing in the face of hysteria. Foremen began sidelining them, assigning menial tasks, or outright firing them under flimsy pretexts. Whispers of sabotage followed them like smoke from welding torches. And then came the notices. Report for relocation. Families torn apart, possessions sold for pennies, futures erased.
Kenji Sato was born in Seattle in 1915, the son of Issei immigrants who had crossed the Pacific in search of opportunity. His father, Hiroshi, worked the Alaskan canneries in summer and Seattle's markets in winter. His mother, Aiko, sewed garments in a cramped apartment above a fishmonger. Kenji grew up in the shadow of Mount Rainier, attending public schools where he excelled in mathematics and drafting. By 1935, at age 20, he had apprenticed as a welder, his hands calloused from handling oxyacetylene torches. He married his childhood sweetheart, Miko, in 1938, and they welcomed a daughter, Yuri, in 1940. Life was modest but promising. A small house in Beacon Hill, weekends at Green Lake, dreams of owning a repair shop someday. When war broke out, Kenji threw himself into the shipyard work. "This is our country too," he'd say to skeptical coworkers. "We'll build the ships to win it." His skill was undeniable. He could weld seams so tight they held against the pounding waves of the Pacific. But suspicion clung to him. Foremen like Bill Harlan, a burly Irishman with a grudge against Orientals, made his life hell. Harlan doctored reports, claiming Kenji's welds were faulty, assigning him to the most dangerous shifts. "One slip and you're fish food," Harlan would sneer. The first accident happened in January 1942, weeks after Pearl Harbor. Kenji was welding a bulkhead on a half-built destroyer when a crane cable snapped or was cut. Tons of steel plummeted, crushing the platform where Kenji stood. Witnesses saw him vanish in the debris. Harlan radioed it in, "Sato down, fatal." But Kenji had sensed the creak, leaped aside at the last second, tumbling into the icy water below. He surfaced, gasping, hauled out by fellow workers. The yard doctor, a sympathetic man named Dr. Elias Thorne, examined him. Bruises, a sprained ankle, nothing more. Yet Harlan's report stood. Kenji Sato, deceased in accident. It was a clerical error, corrected days later, but Kenji noted how quickly his name was erased from the rolls. Internment loomed. In March, notices arrived for Kenji's family. Hiroshi and Aiko were to report to Puyallup Assembly Center. Miko and Yuri would follow. Kenji, as a vital war worker, had a temporary deferment, but Harlan pushed for his removal. "Can't trust a Jap with a torch," he argued to management. Kenji's community frayed. Neighbors like the Tanaka family, elderly grocers, were evicted. The Yamamoto brothers, fellow welders, disappeared one night. Kenji gathered a small group in secret, 20 Nisei workers, including his cousin Haruto, best friend Akita, and Akita's wife Suki, a riveter. They met in abandoned warehouses, whispering plans. "We can't go to those camps," Kenji said. "They'll strip us of everything." But escape seemed impossible. Borders guarded, roads patrolled, the FBI watching. Then came the second accident in late March. Kenji was inspecting a fuel line when an explosion ripped through the compartment. Flames engulfed him, or so it seemed. Harlan again. Sato incinerated, no remains. But Kenji had rigged a dummy, using scrap cloth and his own helmet. He dived through a hatch, swimming ashore under cover of chaos. Dr. Thorne, tipped off, signed the death certificate. Kenji Sato, killed in explosion. This time, the record stuck for weeks. Kenji went underground, living in Seattle's hidden basements, piecing together a plan born of desperation. Part 2. Shadows in the Fog. Kenji's deaths taught him the power of paperwork. In wartime bureaucracy, a man was only as alive as his record said. Death certificates, accident reports, internment orders, all just ink on paper. If you controlled the ink, You controlled fate. Kenji forged alliances. Dr. Thorne, haunted by his own immigrant past, his family fled pogroms in Russia, agreed to help. "I've signed too many real deaths," Thorne said. "Let's fake some lives." Then there was Lena Kowalski, a Polish-American clerk in the shipyard office. Her brother had been killed in Bataan. She blamed the war, not her Japanese co-workers. "I'll alter the logs," she whispered, "for a price." Kenji paid in ration coupons and promises of post-war aid. Captain Elias Reed, a Coast Guard veteran running smuggling runs for extra cash, provided boats. "The Sound is full of ghosts," Reed grinned. "What's a few more?" Kenji's plan coalesced. Fake a massive shipyard disaster, killing the 20 in one blow. Use the chaos to escape via hidden routes to remote Alaskan islands where sympathetic fishermen, many Japanese immigrants themselves, waited. Forge new identities as Aleut refugees or Canadian loggers. But it required precision, explosives timed perfectly, bodies vanished in the blast, records altered to show internment evasion as impossible. They prepared in April. Kenji, bearded and disguised as an itinerant laborer, infiltrated the yards at night. He planted charges, not enough to destroy, but to simulate catastrophe. The group memorized signals. A foghorn blast meant go. Dr. Thorne prepared death drugs, sedatives to simulate coma for any survivors who needed examination. The night of April 15, 1942, fog rolled in thick as wool. The shipyard hummed with third-shift workers. Kenji's group gathered in a dry dock, hearts pounding. "This is for our families," Kenji said, "for Yuri, for all the children." At 2:17 a.m., the charges detonated. Flames lit the night, alarms wailed. "Explosion in Dock 7, radios crackled. Harlan rushed to the scene, grinning inwardly. More Japs gone. But as fire crews doused the blaze, no bodies emerged. "Vaporized," Thorne declared, signing certificates en masse. "Intense heat, no remains." Harlan's suspicious. 20 gone just like that? But records showed them clocked in. Witnesses, bribed co-workers, confirmed. As chaos reigned, the 20 slipped into the water, swimming to Reed's waiting skiff. Fog concealed them as they motored north, hugging the coastline. Part 3. The Phantom Voyage. The escape was just the beginning. Pursued by FBI agents tipped by Harlan, they navigated treacherous waters. Storms battered their craft. Food ran low. In the San Juan Islands, they hid in coves, foraging clams and berries. Akira twisted an ankle. Suki fell ill. Kenji's leadership shone. "We're ghosts now. Ghosts don't tire." They reached Alaska's Inside Passage, welcomed by Tlingit natives who shared stories of their own displacements. "The white man takes, but the sea gives back," an elder said. In remote Kodiak, they built lives. Kenji as Ken Johnson, a fisherman. Miko and Yuri joined later, rescued via forged papers. The war raged, but they were free. Harlan's investigation fizzled. Too many real disasters. The Ghost Fleet legend grew. Spectral ships seen in fog, crewed by vanished Japanese sailors. Epilogue, Echoes in the Mist. By war's end, the 20 scattered, some to Canada, others back to Seattle, post-internment repeal. Kenji died in 1988, his obituary noting a quiet life. But in Pacific Northwest lore, the Ghost Fleet sails on, a testament that even in darkest times, the dead can rise.